Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. We are here. We barely got here. We've been having all kinds of technical difficulties.
Every single morning, there's a new problem that comes up. I get here like 30 minutes early, and then a new thing just pops up out of nowhere that we have to sit, and we're literally scrambling around this place trying to get this ready, and always in the nick of time we get started.
Yeah, and part of the problem, look at all these wires here. Our setup is way too complicated. We're in over our heads. That's all there is to it when it comes to this fancy setup. So you'll have to bear with us. We're still working on some of these things, but when you don't know what you're doing, it can be rather difficult. But we will get it figured out. And while all the technical stuff might be that great, when it comes to the content of what we speak of,
best there is on
it's
YouTube.
Awesome.
5-star.
Exactly. So that is top notch. One of these days we will have a setup and everything that will be on par with the content of what we speak, and that will be pretty impressive when we get to that point, because you don't get anything like this on your television. And with these little trendies, like the trendies, that's one area where they got us beat. They got the technology figured out. They got these perfect setups. Their audio is perfect. The look's perfect. But then what they speak of is pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, well, today we are going to talk about pastoring in a pandemic. This has been a crazy year. I think everyone would agree with that. And it's been unlike anything. One thing every pastor would say is we've never experienced anything like this. Any church that's ever dealt with a pandemic and a lot of this type of thing, they're all dead now, because it's been 100 years since anything like that's happened. So it's not like we had older preachers we could talk to and say, hey, what did you guys do back when this happened 100 years ago? All right. There's a couple of preachers I thought were that old and called them up, but they weren't born yet. But anyway, so, we weren't really able to get help there. So at the end of the day, there have been a variety of things that people have done. But the problem is with the internet, it kind of brings everyone together. And you have the people who are incapable of thinking for themselves, and they get confused when there is not unity on something, and their brains explode. And so what we want to do today is just I'm going to explain kind of our thought process here, but show too how, and hang on to your hats, folks, churches can do things different. All right, different churches, different situations call for different action.
Yeah.
Okay, now Mr. Keyboard Warrior, okay, that's just looking for somebody to rail on. He's just looking for that one. They're always looking for that person that says this is how it is for everybody, and then that way he can go condemn everybody and attack everyone online who's not exactly like that. But what Mr. Keyboard Warrior doesn't understand, because he's never been to a real church, is that there's going to be differences in a lot of things from church to church, and not even just on stuff like with the pandemic. Okay. I'm talking across the board. And so what we're going to do, we're going to kind of illustrate a lot of these things with the pandemic, but also I want to kind of apply it to other areas, because you're going to see differences in churches. You're going to see a difference in order of service. You're going to see a difference in service times, soul winning times. There's a lot of different ways people run their services. And people ought to understand that and be okay about it. So anyway, before we do that, though, we want to go ahead and start out with our preaching clip of the week. And I picked this preaching clip, too, because it kind of goes along with what we're talking about a little bit, and just because I really like the clip. Okay, so I still feel bad about Pastor Sam Knickerbocker. He got his moment of being featured on preaching clip of the week, and then we had all those technical difficulties. And we were having the same technical difficulties this morning. That was one of the things causing us to scramble. So last minute, untested, we're going to try a different method for playing the sermon clip, and we'll see what happens. So hopefully this works, because we do not want to dash the dreams of two pastors in a row. And so this week we have Pastor Joe Arthur of the Harvest Baptist Tabernacle in Jonesboro, Georgia. And Pastor Arthur, he is, and I mean this in a good way, because you all know how I like to make fun of the camp meeting crowd, but he's my favorite camp meeting preacher, but in a good way. I've never heard him preach any heresy. I've always been encouraged by his preaching. I enjoy it a lot. He's hilarious. And most of the sermons I've heard him preach are usually like very uplifting, motivational. And let me just say this too. His style of preaching is completely different than me. This guy doesn't preach like I do. Okay? He has a completely different method, and I think that's okay. Okay? I wish I could get up and do a Joe Arthur type sermon. I'm just not capable of it. You know, I don't have his personality. I don't have his comedic timing that I absolutely love. But I've heard him preach in person several times, and I've always enjoyed it a lot. And so I want you to listen to this clip. I think it's about 3 minutes long of Pastor Arthur, and then we'll talk a little bit about what he's talking about, and then kind of go into our subject for the day. So anyway, all right, go ahead and play that clip for us.
Listen to me this morning. I took Willingham Drive Baptist Church in 1984. The dear man of God that labored in that church for 40 years before I got there was Tom Hughes. He was such a friend to everybody in that community, they called him Uncle Tom. He probably preached more funerals than Jimmy Carter's got peanuts. I used to say brains, and then I made a Democrat mad, so I say peanuts now. A godly man. Maybe 80 people on a big Sunday. And of course, like most people, the older you got, the smaller the church got. They had one guy for about a year, year and a half. Another guy before me lasted 6 weeks. And here comes Joe. After a couple of months, when I realized the heritage of that church, one of the first things I did, we had Tom Hughes Sunday. He's dead and in the grave, but I invited his family. We have Tom Hughes Sunday. We get his family to give us a picture. We put it in a nice frame, and we put it over the water fountain. Bless God, you look up here at me. If I ever get so tiddly-winked and so... Help me, Bob, I'm running out of adjectives today. Self-consumed, irresponsible, them things you called me last night, Julie. What? Just say them again. Bless God, you laughing. It wasn't nothing funny. It took 4 o'clock to get that thing settled. Here you go. If I ever get that lack of security, that the picture of a dead man intimidates me, I need to crawl in a hole somewhere. A picture of a pastor who gave his life for the church, if that intimidates you, man, somebody needs to change your diaper. You got problems, man.
All right. Hopefully we timed all that right. But I love that there. So talked about, if you are so tiddlywinked. I don't know what that means, but I love how that sounds. But here's the point he was making is, if you're just so insecure that, you can't handle the people in your church, giving honor to the former pastor who'd been there for years, you've got problems. Somebody needs to change your diaper. And it is a very common thing for pastors to just be insecure. And because of that, they greatly fear any outside influence, especially if it's in any way contrary to their influence. And the thing is, that shouldn't be a problem. One, if you're secure, if you know you're doing the right thing, and if you've taught your people that not everybody has to do things the same way. if the people in your church know that, they're probably not going to be giving you a whole lot of grief over the fact that you do something a little bit different. And so I don't know. I just thought that was a funny clip, and he went on more just talking about different things that if it just bothers you, if it freaks you out that much, you just need to get over yourself. And because in this millennial generation, anything that offends you or disagree, anything that's contrary to what you think, they want to like silence you and cancel you out. And so I think that's definitely a problem in this generation, where people just can't handle any opposition.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of that clip?
No, I liked it. I mean, it's true, because I've been surprised at just seeing, and this isn't just something that I've really noticed this year, but just in the past, of just how Baptist preachers are more insecure than teenage girls.
That's true.
Honestly, like some of them, like literally, even like just in the past of like listening to different pastors online, and then the pastor of the church that I'm going to, or just other people in the church or associated with it, just losing their minds at the idea, that there's people out there that believe differently on the timing of the rapture. Like literally a 3.5 year difference can just absolutely knock these people off their rocker completely to the point where they can't get back up. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. I mean, we live in a world, and I've noticed this year entirely, just the entire country, is that people have completely lost the ability to work with somebody else that feels differently about a certain issue than them. I mean, like, I'm very anti-lockdown, but I work really hard to see how someone could be pro-lockdown and be able to, still work with that person, still talk to that person, be normal around them. I don't understand what this attitude is of there can't be any differences between people. I think that's insane.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've had several conversations, like in the flesh conversations. I'm not talking about arguing with somebody on social media, but like in the flesh conversations with other pastors that, did things different.
Yeah.
And we didn't get in an argument about it. And I didn't feel the need to go like insult him later. Is just, I can see where he's coming from. And so I wanted to kind of lay out some of the things that you have to factor in. So we're going to highlight this with the pandemic, because again, insecurity is a big thing. And some of it's because y'all are, some of it's not just the pastors, it's the knuckleheads in their church who put pressure on their pastor and judge him based on what other pastors are doing. Okay. That might make your pastor a little crazy. And instead of, taking shots at you, which is what he should do, take shots at other people, and a lot of it too is because of the knucklehead keyboard warriors that go and leave comments. Well, why'd you do that? Pastor McMurtry did blah, blah, blah. And then, they use that to just kind of cause contention and drive wedges. And I think that's pathetic too. But basically, some of the challenges this year, I think one is this year, for example, just staying open is the political pressure, okay? Because you have some groups that are pressuring churches to stay open while others are pressuring them to stay closed. For example, there are groups out there, and when I say political pressure, not just from leaders, but even within church associations, you could say, because, you have your tight-knit groups, you got all your different fellowships out there. And a lot of times in those fellowships, they're telling all the churches in the fellowship, shut down, while other ones are saying, open up. And so you've got the pastor trying to think about his church and his situation, and he's got like all this political pressure to do one thing that's maybe contrary to what he wants to do. And that's tough, especially when it's in a situation where you don't know what to do. It's not like a lot of things that we've prepared ourselves for. We've already prepared ourselves to not give into political pressure when it comes to going liberal, compromise, watering down the message, things like that. We've fought these battles for years. We know how it's done. But, now we're fighting a battle where, you're being told you hate your people and don't care about them if you have church. You're killing your people. Well, here's the big question. Are we? You know, I mean, I don't know anybody that's gotten sick yet. You know, are you sure I'm supposed to do this? So you got that, but you know, you have the potential bad press.
Yeah.
Some churches would be ruined by bad press, you know, because they've not prepared their people for that.
Yeah.
You know, I think our church, you know, we're kind of prepared for it.
We're fine.
Yeah, we've already gotten a lot of bad press.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Twitter world right now. They have no idea what to do with me because I'm literally completely unmoved by the junk that they do towards me. They think they're going to share my preaching clips, and I'm going to freak out because, you know, but it's like, I don't think they realize how small their pressure is compared to some of the, you know, pressure that we've gotten in the past couple of years. You know, and so the thing is, and then too, you know, we're friends with churches that have gotten way more negative press, and so they've kind of set an example on how to handle it. You know, there's been, you know, there's people in their church that have set a good example about, you know, standing by the pastor during that type of thing. And so our church knows how to do that, but other churches, they don't know what to do with that.
Could you imagine what would happen to Spencer Smith if that Mr. Atheist guy did what he did to you?
Dude,
to him?
Well, Spencer Smith,
he'd crawl up and die.
Dude, he almost died when he got attacked by Lauren Daigle's fans.
Oh, man.
He said on one of his videos, I was watching an interview with him, and he was talking about how he got scared.
Yeah,
he took the video down. He was getting so much pressure, he took the video down, but then later she basically went secular, proving that he was right, which it took no major prophecy for him being right on where he was right.
Yeah.
You know, that happens with these Christian singers all the time. As soon as they get big, they go secular. Okay? Everybody knows that happens all the time. But anyway, you know, he ended up being right, so then he put the video back up. But then the thing is, that was kind of what got his YouTube channel out there, and he started getting popularity. But the thing is, he's got a lot of followers, but he does a good job of silencing and ignoring the haters. If he actually got real, you know, negative coverage, especially too if it was hurting him politically, because the thing is, in the IFB world, if you're getting slammed by the Christian rock crowd and the liberals and stuff like that,
get invited to the next Sword of the Lord.
Exactly. You know, you're a hero. But the thing is, where Spencer Smith would lose it is if all of a sudden somebody started dropping his support.
Yeah.
Then, you know, he's going to stop doing whatever he's doing because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, he is a coward and a fraud.
Yeah.
And I'm still bitter at him for getting IFB preacher clips shut down, but they got a new account. I'm following that one. And I just think it's just weak and lame.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's weak and lame. That's all there is to it.
If you're scared of a bunch of trendies, you need to step down.
Dude, yeah, he's so freaked out by a bunch of, you know, easily offended,
yellow-bellied, skinny jean wearing.
Yeah. See, that's the thing with IFB preacher clips. Their followers are a bunch of just pink shirt, you know, tiddly-winked. I'm not good at coming up with the adjectives like the Southern preachers. Southern preachers, man, those insults just roll off their tongue like nothing.
Oh, man.
I wish I could do that, but I'm not that good at it. And but I mean, he's letting these people scare him to death.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny watching liberals cry. And so it's, you know, I'm always encouraged when IFB preacher clips shares my stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when I see people having meltdowns on there. You know, Northwest, they think they're gonna freak me out, you know, and I'm gonna, you know, when they give me an honorary doctorate degree, you know, on Twitter, and it's like, thank you for sharing my stuff. I appreciate it. But you know, yeah, that potential bad press though, it would kill a lot of churches.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would, because these churches have not prepared their people for it. Okay, now I do feel like our church is prepared, and I think that's something that in the IFB they need to do. They need to work on preparing their people a little better for the potential bad press, because you know, it's gonna be more and more likely to come as the world gets worse, unless they keep getting more and more liberal. Yeah. But yeah, so then also you have, you know, internal pressure in the church, and some churches, you got the majority of the congregation are scared. They want to shut down. Other churches, they don't. If you got a church that's full of, maybe elderly people that watch the news all the time, they're telling you to shut down. If you got a bunch of younger people that are watching Alex Jones all the time, they're going to be telling you, stay open, let's fight this thing,
Yeah.
and it's tough. So, they got a lot of the pressure there. You get the government pressure. Some local governments were really, really bad.
Yeah.
Where others weren't. Some places you can fly under the radar. They're not doing anything. In some places, the local leaders and sheriffs have come out and said, don't be a sheep. They've come out and said, we're not going to enforce this stuff.
Yeah.
And so obviously those people are able to kind of do what they want. And so there's factors. So the age of the congregation, the size of the congregation. If you've got a church of several hundred people or 1,000 people, it's not like you have options of meeting different places, or hiding the fact that you're meeting. The location of your church, the size of the facility. Thankfully with this building we have now too, if we wanted to, we could put everybody in Joe Biden circles. Yeah. Like at a Joe Biden rally. And if we spread them out into the fellowship hall and everything too, and we could follow all their stupid rules if they decided they were going to push it. We have those options, but a lot of people don't. When we were in our other building, we couldn't have done that. No. But when we were in another building too, we were also not on a main street where people could see what we're doing. We could fly under the radar. Over here, we don't have places we can park and pretend we're not here.
Yeah.
And so, there's so many things that you have to factor in. And at the end of the day, what this just proves is that independent Baptists are not independent.
No.
I've been saying that for a while, but independent Baptists are just not independent.
No. And this isn't just a new IFB thing either. My wife and I went and took a vacation in North Carolina this past summer. And we visited this church while we were down there, and we went for Sunday morning, and we went to the Sunday school, listened to the pastor preach, and everything was fine. In between the Sunday school and the normal Sunday morning church service, this guy, just a random member in the church, pulls me aside, and he's just kind of talking to me, and I'm telling him where we're from, and he's just talking to me about like what I wanted to do. And I was wearing a suit, and he asked if I was a pastor, and I said no, but someday I might like to. And so anyways, we get into the normal service. He's also asking about what we did with the lockdown and everything. So we get into the normal church service, and this guy stands up in the middle of this pastor's church service, interrupts the entire service, and treats me like I'm some honorary guest. Okay. Has me stand up and basically introduce myself, like my family, and explain the fact that maybe someday I want to pastor a church. And I just literally stood up and restated exactly what he said. I didn't want to say anything. I felt extremely awkward because this wasn't even brought on by the pastor. This is just some random guy that thought I should stand up and do this. Then he turns around and looks at me and says, "Tell him what you guys did for the pandemic." And I'm just like, we didn't shut down, and then immediately sat down. But the pastor was just like, great. But I could tell he shut down. Mm-hmm. This guy was bitter about it. He literally had a little Republican pin on his suit. This guy was hardcore Trump, man. And so he wanted me to stand up, though, and basically nail his pastor. I'm just a first-time visitor in this church. Nail his pastor because his pastor shut down for a small period of time. That is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, look, like we can all have strong opinions, and we can all have hindsight looking back at what this thing was. And this time, if they tell us to shut down again, I think it'll be a little bit of a different situation since we've had a lot of time to see what this virus is. But good night, man. We knew nothing back in March. We didn't have rapid testing. So for a while, the death rate for this thing looked like it was like 20 to 30%. I mean, because they weren't testing people as much as they are now. Now it's like, barely anything. But, That just infuriated me, though, because I hate going against any pastor at all, let alone the pastor of the church that I'm a first-time visitor at. You know, this is all over the IFB world. This is not exclusive to any club at all.
Yeah, that was super bad for that guy to do
I would have
that.
felt like an ant, just being in your position.
I wanted to just get up and
tell
leave.
what you did. Be like,
Yeah.
we didn't shut down.
Well, listen, the guy after the service, that guy came up to me and handed me $100 bill, and's like, you know, maybe this will cover some of the expenses for the rest of your vacation. Well, my wife and I got out to the car, and I was like,
probably his tithe.
yeah. I was like, I feel bad, but I'm not going back to that church. And we were still there for that Sunday night and that Wednesday night. We just found another church to go to. I never saw that guy again, and I hope not to.
Wow.
You know, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess I'll take the $100, but good night.
Yeah, see, there was a time when, you know, your perception of what people did in church was based on what they did in your church. You know, that was it. Now with the internet, we can all see what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so as a result of that, everyone starts making a lot of unfair comparisons.
Yes.
And it's not right. It's not right. It's super pathetic. But, you know, the thing that I'm not going to do, though, is, you know, because, I mean, obviously I have strong opinions on what I think ought to be done. You know, obviously I wish that everyone would just, you know, tell the government, go jump in a lake and open up. But I can't make that decision for everybody.
No.
You know, obviously I like seeing that. And so whenever I see somebody, you know, I mean, I would have never told Pastor Shiflett, you know, or got mad at him if he didn't do what he did, but I'm glad he did it.
Right.
I was glad when he was doing it. I loved when he tore up that note, and I'm glad that he fought. It was $500. I think their church could have handled the $500.
They fought it, and
They fought it and won it, and I'm glad they did that.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did it because it set a precedent. It sent a message. But, you know, I wouldn't have beat him up if he didn't do that. You know, but I'm not going to lie and say I'm not thankful he did it. Now, what I would never do, and I'd be an idiot if I like criticized him for what he did do in taking the stand, or, you know, going and slamming him for wimping out, you know, because he didn't want to pay the $500 or something like that. You know, so there's a lot of things you got to factor in there. And I know he had a lot of different pressure. He had different opinions from people in his church. And, you know, it's no church wants to waste their time fighting legal battles.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I want to do. But, you know, at the same time, when somebody does it does end up benefiting a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so if a church chooses to fight that battle, I say thank the Lord.
Amen.
And, you know, I'm glad, I'm thankful for all the people that have, you know, told the government to go jump in a lake, but I'm not so insecure that I've got to go and try to make the Bible fit my opinion on this for everyone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people are trying to do. And there's no reason for that. All you have to do is just go and, you need to just focus on your church. You know, some people just need to stop paying so much attention to everybody else. And remember, you can only be a member of one church. And a lot of people are members of multiple churches. You know, they jump around to wherever things are fun, or they physically attend one church while they emotionally attend another church. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if that happens, you know, if we get some knucklehead in here, and we've had knuckleheads in here that physically attended this church but were mentally in another church, you know, we're pretty good at running them off. Yeah. Pretty quick.
Can't use a different Bible to fit your agenda, so you just use different churches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, too, one thing I don't do, whenever the knuckleheads come through who are following a different pastor, I don't have to go beat up the other pastor.
Yeah.
I beat up the knucklehead.
Right.
I was just like, man, if that's who you're following, I would recommend going to their church. Mm-hmm. I mean, good night. You know, if I like John Hagee, I go to his church. I wouldn't come to this church and try to make, you know, me John Hagee, you know, or my pastor John Hagee. That's super weird. And you know, and so I think a lot of this is something that, you know, the IFB is going to have to adapt to a little bit. The fact that we're not so much on an island anymore, where you used to be in an island. where what you did in your church, in your mind, is what everybody did in every church.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it used to be, especially for the average member. Pastors have always kind of gone around to other churches and gone to pastors' fellowships, and you communicate with pastors, and so you get a lot from that. But average Joe church member, they only ever go to their church. They only would ever listen to their pastor. And now, in the age of the internet, it's not like that anymore. And so I do think pastors are going to have to toughen up a little bit, when it comes to their feelings.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to just, establish a few things that, hey, different churches do things different, and it doesn't always make them bad churches. Because that's where we end up looking like idiots, is when we make everyone who disagrees with us out to be horrible people.
Yeah.
It's like, no, sometimes it's just a different situation. And so pastors need to get a hold of that. And then they also need to communicate that to their church too. And if they would do that, then, hopefully the knuckleheads will just, learn that, hey, this is Liberty Baptist Church.
Yeah. Not
whatever Baptist church. If I don't like what happens at Liberty Baptist Church, I should go to the other church. Mm-hmm. And not try to transform this into something else. That's because a lot of people that do this stuff too are a lot of times new Christians. $5 says that guy that gave you $100 probably hadn't gone to that church super long. Anybody that does something that stupid and that insensitive, he couldn't have been there that long.
Especially in the South, where you have like 50 churches to go to in a small town.
Yeah,
he probably hadn't been going there for
no. There's no way he'd been going there very long at all. I'd be willing to put money down. I'm not a gambler. I don't think it'd be gambling that he hadn't been going to that church for long. Okay, that type of stupidity comes from just pure immaturity. Yeah, and we see a lot of that, especially in the internet world, because you have your internet Christians who when all your churches is from the internet, you are going to be majorly lacking. You are going to be so deficient. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In a lot of things. You're going to be really strong in some areas. You're going to be like, if you're just one of these internet only Christians, in some areas you might look like one of these bodybuilders that has like these giant upper torso and then like these tiny bird legs. Yeah, that's what you look like spiritually, because you're not balanced. Man. If you're not around real flesh and blood people, if you're not loving the brethren,
you guys are skipping leg day.
Yeah, you're skipping leg day. And it shows. Yeah, you look funny. Make sure and so it's like in their social media world, all their pictures are just from the waist up. Yeah. Spiritually speaking, yeah, we see all the videos of you out soul winning and all the sermons that you're sharing. But you know what? If we get a look at all of you, we'd all be laughing at your bird legs spiritually. And you need to get into a real church so you can be a more balanced, well-rounded Christian. And what you find out when you get in church is that not everybody in a church is exactly alike. There's a lot of differences. And people have different gifts and abilities and all different maturity levels, and you learn how to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And so the pressure for just this complete, trying to create just an identity, that it's exactly the same. It mainly comes from the internet crowd, because they're confused. They don't know how to handle it when people are a little bit different. That's because they don't go to real church. Okay, and just because you went and visited one a couple times and got thrown out doesn't mean you actually know what it's like to be in a church. I'm talking about long-term, actively involved. You know the names of the people. They know your name. You've been to their house. They've been to your house. You actually know each other. And again, love the brethren. Okay? Loving the brethren is a major command. It is something that it is essential to our life. And just because you go out soul winning, that doesn't mean you're loving the brethren. That's loving the lost. That's good. Yeah. All right. That's good. Hey, bicep curls are good, but you need to do the leg exercises too. Yeah. Yeah. And that loving the brethren thing, forbearing one another, lifting each other up, that is an important thing. And so you're going to find out if you ever get in a real church that, there's a variety of people in every church. If you get around churches, there's a variety of churches. There's different preaching styles. Like I said, Joe Arthur and myself, we're completely different in how we preach. You know, we have a completely different style. And you know what? I don't think God would be interested in making. I don't think the Holy Spirit's working on Pastor Joe Arthur saying, you know, you need to be a little more like Tommy McMurtry. You know, I need to be a little more like Joe Arthur. Yeah, it's just we all have our different gifts and abilities, and we've got to recognize that and understand that. And so, you know, thankfully, you know, our church, we don't have, you know, so we're really good at running off the knuckleheads, and you know, you guys aren't here every week just bashing all these other pastors are just like a little bit different and stuff like that. It's mostly just the goons on the internet that do that kind of stuff. And that is so wrong. I like different personalities. I like different people. I like different styles. And sometimes I go listen to some of these guys just to, you know, I think I need some of that to go off. You know, sometimes I wish I had a little more of the camp meeting in me. You know, maybe I need to go to another camp meeting.
Well, it's just good to live in a world where you know that there's other people that do things differently than you, and it's okay.
Right.
You know, like literally, the fact I love IFB preacher clips, especially because I don't just see, like, while they do put like our crowd on there sometimes, it's all kinds of other different crowds, and even amongst them, there's different distinctives, and it's like people just, you know, tune it in a little bit. There's different kinds of fundamental Baptists out there, even within fundamental Baptists.
Oh yeah.
And then even inside the like the camps within the IFB, there's camps in those camps. I mean, there's so many different people, and here's the thing, they're fine. You know, it's okay.
Right.
I like when things are different. You know,
Yeah.
it's weird to me when everything's the same.
I appreciate some of the people that IFB Preacher Clips has introduced me to.
Yeah, seriously.
That I enjoy. I'm sorry. Pastor Nathan Rager is a blessing.
Amen.
We are not exactly alike. It definitely in personality and style, associations. You know, we've got things where we disagree, but he is a unique individual. And you know what else he is? He's an individual.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You know, you know, he's, I mean, who do you compare him to? Nobody.
You have to take a little bit from, well, it's a little bit of this, and you got everything mixed.
Yeah, he is kind of a mixture of, you know, all the IFB groups, and it all, and what, you know, what does it happen when you mix all the different groups to IFB? You got Nathan Rager, right? Yeah. And I appreciate that about him. Yeah. And you know what? I'm not going to go imitate him. No. You know, I'm not going to go. I don't know. I've gotten some good lines from him.
You got the good old fashioned.
Yeah, I got good old fashioned.
You can't claim that you've never imitated.
Yeah, but right, yeah. So, but at the same time, though, you know, I would never bash him for being different than me.
Yeah, seriously.
And you know what? I don't need to. That's what Twitter's for. Right? That guy's got so many haters on Twitter. I think it's because these queer little skinny jean wearers, they can't handle. They you know, he is different than everybody, and it's just like that drives them nuts.
It's okay. They
want him to put on the skinny jeans and, you know, just blend in with all the other little millennials of the world, and he doesn't do that, and so they lose their minds. And you know, there's a lot of, we're about out of time. There's a lot of other people like that we could talk about, but you know what? Thank God for different personalities, different preachers, different styles, different churches. You know, at the end of the day, I got enough work cut out for me taking care of this church, you know, keeping myself in line, keeping our church in line. And of course I want to be an influence, you know, but I think my best method of being an influence is being successful in what I do, and not have, you know, if I'm running an insane asylum, I don't think anybody's going to follow me. Yeah. You know, my lead. So, you know, you know, if I just need to do the right thing and be an influence that way. And then if people don't follow my lead, I got better things to do than to chase them down and beat them up. Yep. So anyway, be supportive of your pastor out there. Amen. I mean, hey, yeah, listen, I'm not going to change my mind on my opinions about everything that's going on. You know, I know what I think people ought to do, but if they don't do it, I'll get over it. In fact, I'm already over it. And so you know what you need to do? You need to get over it. Amen. And don't hold your pastor accountable for what I preach. You know, if that is wrong, and you're just going to make me the bad guy.
Yep.
And so don't do that. But anyway, thank you for watching this, and we make sure you tune back in next week. Send us some preaching clips. If you find a preaching clip you like, send us a preaching clip. Send us a link to the sermon, maybe a time marker of where it gets good. We want to feature different people on here every week. And go check out Pastor Joe Arthur's church. If you'll enjoy his preaching. I've enjoyed every sermon I've ever heard him preach. But anyway, God bless you. We'll see y'all later.